Hello, welcome to the Holistic Healer Podcast, a podcast dedicated to all things holistic. I am your host, Cheryl Lee. Today's guest, Matt Bennett from Raw Intuition. Matt is a holistic health educator, a detoxification specialist, raw chef, and author of several ebooks. We sit down today to discuss detoxification, using salads to create success, transition, and connecting to your intuition and higher frequency through living foods, and so much more. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Holistic Healer Podcast. I'm your host, Cheryl Lee, and today's guest is Matt Bennett from Raw Intuition. Super excited. He is a holistic health educator, a detoxification specialist, a raw chef, and you are author of several ebooks I see on your website. So that's really awesome as well. And you are passionate about detoxification and living foods. Got that right.
You got it. Yeah, you got it.
Yay.
Perfect.
Sweet. Awesome. So I always kind of like to give my audience just a little bit of a backstory and a journey of how you got to where you are today, if you don't mind that. And I just lost there you are. There we go.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So if you can just give us a little backstory, like, growing up and what your family, how you were raised basically, and what got you to this lifestyle today.
Yeah. So I grew up in Minnesota, so central United States. And, it was pretty standard American diet, like most people. A lot of meat, dairy, and eggs, packaged processed foods. My mom did make quite a bit she tried to make homemade meals, but a lot of it was still out of a box or a bag or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, and with that, I also grew up with, the common standard American health issues. So I had asthma and eczema and constant colds and sore throats and flus and all that sort of stuff. So I dealt with that growing up, and then when I was in my teenage years, I started to deal with a little more kind of toxic, self-demeaning or self-limiting thoughts. And then to add on to that, when I was about 16 or 17, I started to lose my hair, and so that was like the most terrifying thing for me. Yeah. It was because I always growing up, I kind of like to style my hair and things like that. It kind of became part of my identity. And so when I started to lose my hair, that was like kind of the biggest push towards really looking into what I was eating and how I was living. And so I started doing all the searches on the internet back then, back when it was dial-up and all that sort of stuff. And I came across, of course, meat, dairy, and eggs. A lot of high-protein animal products were suggested. Yeah. But then also there was a lot of mention of spinach. So I started looking into spinach and leafy greens. And so I started making these big, massive spinach and chicken and ranch salads, several times a week. And so that kind of got me into eating more fresh vegetables. And that stuck with me until this day. And so, I did that for a few years. And, I really wasn't seeing any improvement in my hair or anything, but I continued to look for different things in my life that I could, supplements or, standing on my head or scalp massages, things like that. And so, none of it really worked. But in probably 2010, when I was 24 or 25, I came across an internet radio program that was talking about juicing and the benefits of juice fasting. And so I was interested in that, and I had actually just recently received a Jack LaLanne juicer from my brother that he wasn't using. Yeah, it was only a few weeks before I came across this, so cool. And so a little synchronicity going on there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yes, and so I just jumped into the juicing. I was planning to do like a 2 to 3 day just juice fast, and I ended up feeling so good on that third day that I just decided to keep going. Wow. And I ended up going 10 days. And so at the end of those 10 days, I felt incredible. I was sleeping better, which is another thing that I really dealt with growing up was insomnia. I spent many nights where I'd get like 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And
Wow.
so, yeah, I was sleeping better. My energy was better. My skin looked better. I had lost weight. And, it didn't really do anything for my hair. But what it did do was it started to open my eyes to one, the power of fruits and vegetables, because I
Hmm.
realized I hadn't been, eating all of the animal products, the meat, dairy, and eggs that I was told growing up that I needed
Yes.
to eat in order to be healthy. I felt the best I had ever felt, and I wasn't eating any of those things. And so that was kind of a light bulb moment for me at that point. But also, it started to really diminish some of the toxic thinking that I was having, some of
Yeah.
the emotional side of, and the spiritual side even of my life that started to kind of open up, and my awareness became much more expanded, and I was starting to
Hmm.
see some of the thought patterns that I had been falling into. And so while it didn't correct, it didn't bring back my hair, what it did was opened up my awareness to, my internal dialogue,
Yeah.
and it really freed me over the course of the last 12 plus years that I've been living this way. It really freed me from that more of the ego based,
Yeah.
just superficial type of mindset where, I associated my value with my hair and with other,
Hmm.
physical characteristics. And it really brought into light the innate value within me, and that I am more than just my physical body. And so
Yeah.
that shot me down a rabbit hole of just learning about natural living, about spirituality, about health, and really about raw foods. And so,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, I came across the three guys that really got me into this once I started digging around was Dan McDonald, who I
Hmm.
know you're going to have on your show,
Yeah.
John Kohler
Hmm.
over at Growing Your Greens, and Dr. Robert Morse. And
Yeah.
so I started learning from these guys, and they really built the foundation of this lifestyle for me, and my education. And I just took it from there, and I started, learning from various other people as well, and figuring out how to make this work for myself, because I'm a big believer in kind of individualizing this
Yeah.
lifestyle, because everybody has a little bit different a situation. And so, yeah, it completely transformed my life. It completely, just shifted my
Wow.
paradigm of what I understood health to be. And yeah, 12 plus years later, here I am, and I'm happy to be on your show.
Yeah. I love that because it's the kind of the integration. Like I talk a lot about that on my show because it's like my platform is holistic. And so, I really try to drive home that it's not just one thing, that we're not just focused on the diet, that there's other things like our spirituality and proper sleep and all of these things that are just as important as the diet. So I love that you kind of like just naturally and organically, it just kind of that spiritual and the emotional component just kind of integrated really naturally for you, which is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, thank you.
When you were, so you did, you were losing your hair, which is, I think for some men, that would be equally as traumatic as losing weight. Because I think for men, a lot of times they're steered away because they start eating this way and then they start dropping weight and it freaks them out. And so they kind of put a stop to it. And I'm just wondering, like, at that time when you were losing your hair, like, I don't know if you also lost a lot of weight. Like, did you have weight to lose, or did you kind of really get quite, for lack of a better word, skinny after you started implementing like the juicing and the fasting?
Hmm. Yeah, I did lose a lot of weight, and
Hmm.
that was one thing that, going into it, because so even before I learned about Dr. Robert Morse, I did that juice fast, and I did lose about, probably close to, from what I remember, it was like close to 15 pounds in the 10 days.
Hmm.
So it was
Yeah.
a pretty dramatic loss
Yeah,
of
for
weight
sure.
in a very short time. And I had people at work asking me if I was okay, like if I was sick. And, I was just like, no, I'm just trying to get healthy. And so, yeah, it was. But the thing that Dr. Morse promotes or just educates people about is if you're going to get healthy, you have to be
Yeah.
willing to get skinny, in the
Yeah.
beginning. And I just, and again, following Dan McDonald, he really promoted that as well as,
Yeah, for
yep.
sure.
So I,
It's just
Yep.
that over identification with the exterior self and
Yep.
allowing that. And I mean, some people aren't there, both
Yeah.
men and women aren't there to be able to allow that to happen. But I think it's a really good indicator and marker of kind of where you're at in terms of like being over identified, where you would rather hang on to like maybe unhealthy habits or something that's creating kind of that weight gain, or maybe your ideal weight may be, but you would rather keep that than lose some weight, to actually regain your health. So I always find that quite interesting, and I think it's a really good marker kind of where people are at mentally on their path.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I've heard you talk about your 3 Ps in your program.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain what those 3 Ps are for people?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, the 3 Ps are just kind of a philosophy that I try and help people understand when they're getting into the lifestyle, because a
Hmm.
lot of people, kind of neglect these things, and that is one reason why I see people, what I believe is kind of the main reason why they kind of fall off track. So
Yeah.
the 3 Ps is basically it's kind of a mindset approach to the lifestyle, and the first P is patience. A lot of people jump
Hmm.
in; they want everything to happen overnight. They want to be perfect at being a raw vegan,
Yeah.
and it's just not realistic for most people. And so, patience with allowing your body to heal and to adapt to this new way of eating and living, because your body does go through changes over time, and it doesn't happen right away. So patience is the
Yes.
first thing that I really try and get people to embrace going into this
Hmm.
lifestyle. The second P is practicality, and
Hmm.
they all kind of tie in together. So practicality, mainly when I'm saying that, it's like, understand your own circumstances. When I got into it, I wanted to eat just like I saw people eating in Costa Rica or in
Yeah.
Florida, or in Asia, but it's like I'm in
Yeah.
Minnesota, so the availability to quality fruit just isn't the same, here as it is there. And
Sure.
so, yeah, it's just I see too many people kind of getting into that mindset where they think they need to follow, word for word, or, action for action, the same thing somebody else in a different environment or a different living situation is than themselves. And
Right.
so I think that it's really important to,
It's a good one.
be practical about your situation and what you can, how you can optimize your situation that's going to work in a sustainable way for you, rather than trying to copy somebody else,
Yes.
verbatim. And then the third P is persistence. So,
Mm.
all of this, again, like I said, it's not going to happen overnight, and there's going to be ups and downs. You're going to probably, fall off track somewhere along the line, and you just have to
Yes.
understand that mistakes or challenges are nothing but learning opportunities,
Yeah.
and you need to just know that going into it, and take each situation that you feel you're struggling with, learn from it, and use that as, wisdom moving forward, so that you can
Hmm.
continue to improve and evolve your lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love those because these are all things that, I mean, the patience piece is really important because I just feel like in this society, we want things yesterday.
Yeah.
And if it's not happening like yesterday or at the very least today, it's like everything's just so throwaway and on to the next and on to the next. And people
Yep.
get so they're very easily swayed into, different paths because in their mind, things just aren't working, but they haven't given it the time and the patience required to actually create that success for themselves. So I love that. Just kind of going into it and just being realistic that it is going to require patience. You're going to stumble, you're going to fall, get back on, be persistent. So I love all those things. And then, of course, the practicality part too, because like I'm in Seattle and it's the same, like in the winter, it's very hard. Like, they're bringing in produce from Mexico and California, but it's picked super unripe.
Yep.
And yeah, you just kind of have to make do with, do the best you can. But yeah, of course, I think we all look at, Jeff Juices in Bali
Yeah.
with all those fruits and everything. And it's like, oh my goodness. Is that
Yeah.
something that you would like aspire to do, is to eventually be somewhere that's a little bit warmer and more conducive to the lifestyle?
Yeah, definitely. I
Yeah,
mean,
me too.
having some land with some, where you can grow your own food.
Yes.
I think that's everybody that's into this lifestyle. I think that's their dream.
Yeah,
And
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, that would be amazing. So you are a detoxification specialist. And I know everyone has their own kind of version of what detoxification is and what that looks like. So, in your view, what is detoxification for you? And what would that look like for your clients going through a detoxification?
yeah. That's a good question. So detoxification for me is, it's the opposite of toxification, right? So it's
Hmm.
eliminating the toxins from not only your body but your mind and your environment. I
Hmm.
a lot of people kind of only focus on the food and maybe herbs when they're doing detoxification, but over the years I have really embraced the idea that the environment, synthetic chemicals,
Yeah,
our
for sure.
thoughts, all of these things, our relationships, all of these things can be detoxified and, purified, I guess you could say, just optimized to introduce the least amount of trauma or toxins to the body and to the mind. So yeah, detoxification is really just purifying your environment and your body in a way that allows you to eliminate properly and eliminate, you know, whether it be physical toxins, eliminating physical toxins
Right.
faster than they accumulate within the body.
Hmm.
And so focusing on the eliminative pathways is a big part of my detoxification protocol, where, helping to support the kidneys, the lungs, the colon, the skin, and really cleaning up the products that we use, the synthetic chemicals that we're
Right.
surrounded
Yeah.
by. All that sort of stuff is what I incorporate into my detox protocol.
Is that through like using juicing or water fasting? Like, do you implement the both of those protocols regularly?
Personally, I kind of go in waves. There's times where I'll be into fasting more, and then there's times where I won't do it for a while. I
Hmm.
haven't done a water fast or a juice fast for probably a year and a half or something like
Hmm.
that. So typically, yeah, I mean, I think juice fasting and water fasting are definitely powerful tools that we can use in
Hmm.
detoxification at the right times. And then also just using, you know, intermittent fasting is another thing that we can
Yeah.
use. I pretty much tend to eat between, like, my first meal I'll have at like 11 or 12 usually.
Yeah.
And then I'll try and finish eating by 6 or 7 o'clock. So that gives me
Okay.
a good window of cleansing and detoxification and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard of this before. I'm sure you've had, but that detoxification is more important than nutrition.
Yeah,
What are your
I would
thoughts on that?
I would agree. If not, I would say either it's either equally important or more important, because
Yeah.
you know you can be eating the most healthy organic raw foods, but if you're not eliminating properly,
Yeah.
then you're just putting it into an environment of stagnation that isn't going to allow for the most optimal utilization of whatever you're eating.
Yeah.
So as long as you're doing what you need to do for the correct and proper elimination, I think that's
Hmm.
going to really help people, optimize their, what they're getting from the nutrition that they're putting in.
Yeah. And this is kind of a segue into my next question, but also I feel like when you're fasting, for sure, I think it's more potent when you're doing a water fast than a juice fast with cleansing the body. I think it would be a much more intense experience. I've done a 21-day juice fast, and I did 7 days on water a long, like almost 30 years ago. So it's been a really long time. But I know, like, over the last couple of years, I've done a 48-hour water fast here and there, and it's really hard. Like, it's to get through those couple days, it's not easy. Whereas the juice, it's hard, but it feels doable because you're still getting the calories and you can kind of go about your day-to-day activities. But I would imagine that, when we look at the emotional body, the physical body and then the emotional body, it's kind of like a speed ticket to get to that place where you're able to kind of clear out the debris of both.
Yeah.
Because again, this is going to be my next question is going to be around kind of your raw chef and gourmet raw, this type of thing. Because again, we can use food, even if we're on a cooked food diet, to kind of numb out, right? We can numb out from all of the emotional stuff, our mental issues, our past traumas, wounding, all that kind of thing. So, I've said it before where often if you're not careful, we can take our cooked food habits and bring them into the raw food space by overusing the dehydrator or, eating too much nut meatloafs or whatever. So you're a raw chef though. So how do you kind of find balance within those two, like the simplicity of a raw food diet, fruits, vegetables, and we're going to get into like the salads that you love and make versus the raw gourmet as a raw chef, and how do you kind of find balance in there?
Yeah, that is something that has really evolved for me over,
Hmm.
the time I've been doing this. Back when I first got into it, I was eating more of those nut meats and
Yeah,
dehydrated foods
sure.
and, things like that. And I went down to the Graph Academy. At the time, it was called the Graph Academy of Raw Food Education in
Uh-huh.
Atlanta. And that was an unbelievable experience. It was a 3 day or a 3 week chef certification course, and it was with Jackie and Gideon Graff, and it was honestly one of the most memorable, amazing
Yeah, I
times of
bet.
my life. So yeah, so I we learned how to make all the gourmet stuff, and
Hmm.
that's really fun, and I still will make that, and I think it's great for a bridge to get into the lifestyle.
Exactly. Like a
And
transition.
yes, yeah, it's perfect for transitioning away from the heavy standard American diet.
Yeah.
And as you get into it, for me personally anyways, I noticed that the longer I ate this way, the more I was drawn to simplicity and light, like being light. And
Yes.
so
Me
I
too.
yes, so I kind of
Mhm.
got away. I still will have dehydrated foods sometimes or some gourmet type stuff every once in a
Yeah.
while, but I'm kind of, I love to enjoy my food, but I love that when it's simple, right? I don't like to
Yeah.
have 100 different ingredients in a recipe and have to
Yeah.
wait 2 or 3 days to dehydrate it and things like that. So yeah, as a raw chef, I really try and make things as simple as possible while
Yeah.
still maintaining the deliciousness and just the nice feeling that you get when you eat it. And so yeah, I do still have a dehydrator, but we use it much less frequently than we used to.
Yeah.
Mostly for like dehydrating nuts or seeds that we've soaked, and then we just have a
Hmm.
big batch that we can use.
Yeah.
But yeah, and sometimes we'll try and make like a tortilla or something. But for the most part, what we're having is pretty simple raw
Yeah.
food. It's what I call SFS is my daily meal plan that I kind of share with people, and it's just smoothie, fruit, salad.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, and that's the basis of how I eat. And if I want, like in my book 21 Day Raw Transformation Program, I have big batch sides. And so these are a little more gourmet type
Yeah.
meals or dishes that you can have with. I like to, you know, have people eat them with a salad. I think
Yeah.
salad should be the main course
Y-
for
Sure.
dinner. And so yeah, there are more gourmet-ish type sides that I have for eating with the salad, but when you eat the hydration, when you eat the hydrating foods, that's where the most benefit is going to be in terms of
For
how you
sure.
feel, how you eliminate, how you think. And so yeah, that's what I've gravitated towards over the last 12 years.
Yeah, because I think I was like you. I mean, I used to do raw gourmet like all the time. And I remember just always feeling so thirsty afterwards.
Yeah.
It was just like eating a pizza or something. It was that same feeling. But psychologically, you feel like, oh, well, it's good because it's still considered raw. But when you start really relying on those foods, I feel like it doesn't allow for kind of the next level to happen if you're not including like the smoothies, the fruit, and the salad, the things that are really high water content. It kind of, in my opinion and in my experience, it kind of can keep people stuck if they don't start kind of evolving out of that, because that food is delicious and it's super stimulating and like you can just make everything under the sun. So,
Yeah.
and I know you're like a massive advocate for big salads, and a lot of your ebooks are centered around salads, which is amazing. And I think people get stuck sometimes because they don't eat in volume. They don't eat, they think they take kind of like the side salad and then they bring that in, try to make that a meal, and then they don't succeed because they're hungry. And so that kind of steers them into other directions. So, like, in your opinion, do you think salad is like the key to success for a lot of people, and incorporating like the volume of a salad and keeping it, lots of variety, those types of things?
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the most important keys. It has been for
Hmm.
me, anyways. And actually, if anybody wants, they are in paperback as well. So
Oh, cool. Oh, that's
yeah,
great. Awesome.
yeah. So you can get them on Amazon if you
That's
want,
great. I
if you
didn't know
like
that.
paperback. So yeah, but yes, I think understanding how to make a salad that is worthy of being called a meal. I think that's where
Yes.
people
I
struggle the
love that.
most. Like you said, people just have their side salad and they just think that they can have that as the meal, whereas the volume isn't there for
Yeah.
really hitting those stretch receptors that are part of what makes us feel satisfied,
Yeah.
and plus the calorie receptors as well. If you're not taking enough calories in your meal, it's not going to satisfy you as much, and
Yeah.
that's why people are so gravitational towards fruits more than salads, because they get more calories there.
Yeah.
So if you can learn how to create a salad, which is what I call a 5-star salad,
Hmm.
and understand the key aspects of what will help it to make you feel satisfied, keeping it delicious, nourishing you, and hitting all what I call or what industry calls the bliss points. Companies, corporations are paying these food scientists a lot of
Yeah.
money to find the bliss points of a lot of these
Yeah.
foods so that you're as addicted to them as possible. And I think we can do that in a natural way with our whole fresh foods, and do it especially with our salads where most people struggle, and find a way to hit all of our bliss points that give us that satisfaction and that desire to continue
Yeah.
eating them.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think, if you're eating like a really high fruit diet, for me, anyways, I feel like by the end of the day, like by around like 4 o'clock, I'm craving that kind of more savory, right?
Yeah.
I kind of don't want any more fruit at that point. So I mean, for me, yeah, salads have been kind of a lifesaver. And sometimes it's just maybe like some cut up tomato or cucumber, but it's something that's not so sweet towards the end of
Mhm.
the day. And I can see how if people are only eating like a small, like just a salad bowl full of like, lettuce greens or something and some chopped up vegetables, that might be okay for a few days. But eventually, I think, especially if you're active too,
Yep.
do you have like kind of a macronutrient like percentage that you like to follow, not only for yourself, but when you're making these salads or making these recipes, like with the carbs and the protein and the fat being at a certain kind of percentage?
I don't really think about it too much. When
Hmm.
when I do put it into Chronometer, it does come out to around, it's not exactly 80-10-10, but it's like,
In
my,
and
my
around
fat,
there.
yeah, it's usually
Hmm.
between my fat percentage, usually around 10 and 15%.
Right.
So that's usually, I think, maybe a little closer to 15%. But yeah, I really don't think about it that much. I guess I did probably a little earlier on when I was kind of learning how, how eating, which variation of this diet felt the best to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, earlier on, I was definitely higher fat. I could eat like 6 avocados at one time and feel
Yeah.
just fine. But
Yeah.
now, yeah, now if I eat 6 avocados, I mean, I can't even eat really 2 avocados and without
Yeah,
noticing
it's
a
so
difference.
true.
So,
It's crazy how the body just kind of like evolves in that way
yeah,
it's just, again, it just comes back to as you go down this path, it just things just get more simple,
yep.
it seems like, which is
And,
great.
yeah, and like you said, when you would eat, I don't know if it was was it dehydrated foods or cooked foods, it made you so
Yeah,
thirsty.
dehydrated food and cook. Yeah, both, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like for me now, if I eat dehydrated foods, it makes me noticeably more thirsty than
Hmm.
I ever remember feeling thirsty after eating dehydrated foods, 10 years ago.
Sure. Yeah.
So your body does become more sensitive to these
Hmm.
things the longer you allow it to balance back out to a, natural level. And so yeah, if you start to eat less hydrated foods, if you've been eating mostly hydrating foods for, a good amount of time, then yeah,
Yeah.
your body adapts and it'll let you know much
Mhm.
sooner than it used to.
Do you use like incorporate a lot of herbs like in your salads as well? Because I know like herbs are so full of micronutrients and they're super nutrient dense. So do you incorporate a lot of that?
I do, yeah. That's one of
Hmm.
the pillars of my 5-star salad is having a
Yeah, like
fresh.
what's the pillars? Tell us the
Okay,
pillars of the
yeah,
five-star salad.
okay, yep. So one of the pillars is a fresh herb. I like to put
Okay.
in, something like cilantro or parsley or dill or basil, whatever fresh herb you like. That's
Yep.
one of the pillars. And so with a 5-star salad, you want to hit, the stars are associated with the pillars. So if you have
Okay.
4 of these things, you got a 4-star salad. Yeah, I promote
Got
trying
you.
to get as many fives as possible. So the next one is to have at least 1 pound of leafy greens in your salad. And so that might sound like a lot to some
Yeah.
people, and it is, but it's not even really that hard to do. It's like one normal size head of romaine lettuce is
Yeah.
usually pretty close to a pound, unless you're getting, the bagged romaine lettuces are usually smaller, so it might
Yeah.
take like 2 of those. But like if you get like a free head of romaine, it's a good size. It's probably close to a pound. And so yeah, that's the first thing. Because again, you want to get the volume. You want to have
Right.
the stretch receptors you want to activate so that it sends the hormones to your brain, letting you know that you've ate a significant amount. The next pillar is to have at least one, or at least a little bit of a cruciferous vegetable
Hmm.
in with that one
Okay.
pound. So like cabbage or arugula or kale, something like that, a leafy green of the
Right.
arugula or of the cruciferous family. Because one, they do have a different nutrient profile that, is touted as being so beneficial.
Yeah.
And then also they are a little more calorically dense usually. So like kale is like
Yeah, for
3
sure.
times more calorically dense than lettuce. So yeah, it's not that it's a huge difference, but I think, every little bit counts, and I think people feel a little more satisfied when they have something like kale in there, one of those more,
Yeah.
you know,
It's just more like, for lack of a better word, meteor.
yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
So then the next pillar would be to have at least 5 different colors in your salad,
Mm.
because that's where you're going to get your
Yeah.
antioxidants, your polyphenols, these chemicals that reduce oxidative stress in the body, and they also feed your good gut bacteria. So getting
Yeah.
in as many colors as you can into your diet is only going to help. So that's the fourth one, and then the last but final one, and maybe the most important, is the homemade whole food salad dressing. And
Yes.
so in the book, I've got in this book, I've got 17 of my newest whole food, oil free
Wow.
salad dressings. I usually make them out of, a nut or a seed as the base, and
Yep.
then lemon and maybe a couple dates, and then, just some spices. But that's the nice thing about using, different spices and herbs, is that you can create different flavors with, the same basic ingredients. So like every single one of my dressings is based with a nut or a seed, and then lemon and dates, and then
Yep.
whatever herbs you like. Yeah, it's pretty easy to make a good salad dressing. People don't realize how simple it is.
Yeah, for sure.
And
And you're
then,
right. The dressing is everything.
yeah, it really is. It really is. You
Yeah.
can turn any like you can just, there's so many options for flavors that you can create with a good salad dressing, and there's
Yeah.
so many different flavors out there. And then this book has 21 salad dressings in it. So if you get one of these
Wow.
two
Amazing.
books, I mean, you get a lot of variety in different salad dressings you can use to start learning how to enjoy these salads.
Yeah.
And again, like I said about how I try to make my recipes, they're very simple. They're easy to find ingredients. It's nothing crazy. So
Yeah.
uh,
I think like your books are like, they're really priceless because it having those components of the salad, but the dressing, it's like a lot of people, they'll go to the store and they'll buy like a bottle dressing, and and then they'll start learning that as they go down the path that though you don't want those on your salad, they're usually full of preservatives and all kinds of like, you know, oils that we don't want in our bodies. So then trying to, just chop up some vegetables without the dressing is not satisfying for most people, especially if they're transitioning. So it's like so worth every single penny to invest in books like that, where you're getting some ideas and not just one, because a lot of people also like the variety, right? They don't want to eat the same thing every day. So although you're making the salad and you've got all those 4 stars, the fifth star is interchangeable, right? And you can just go to town with all of the different types of dressings. I'm sure you've got, you know, lots of varieties. You just said there's many in there, so that's great.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
amazing.
I appreciate you saying
Yeah,
that.
of course. So I just wanted to ask you too, being from, you grew up in Missouri?
Minnesota. Yeah.
In Minnesota.
Yep.
So how was your family like when you started to transition? Like what was that like? Were they supportive of you doing this? Did you get a little bit of resistance and pushback?
Yeah, there was a little bit, but for the most part, they were pretty supportive. I
Uh-huh.
think, I think one of the reasons why it was probably less turbulent than some people experience is I really did my research, and I was
Mm.
really trying to educate myself about physiology, anatomy and physiology, and just how the body works. And so like anytime like my mom would come to me with like a question or a concern, I would usually be able to either, explain it or show her a video or something, and she was open to it. She's
Yeah.
always been, kind of holistically minded
Yes.
within the framework that she knew, but and she's now eating a vegan diet, whole food
Wow.
mostly. So yeah, she's
Wow.
changed her diet and lifestyle as well, as has
Mhm.
my brother. He's pretty much a high raw whole food vegan. So
Wow, that's great. Wow, it's
yeah,
amazing.
so yep. So
Because I would
so there has been,
imagine,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
That's okay. I was just gonna say there has been changes. It wasn't like that from the beginning. So
Yeah.
anybody that does deal with resistance, do know that as long as you educate yourself and you're doing things, do things the way you want to do them. But if you're able to explain the things that you're doing to the ones that are closest to you, it usually helps with kind of,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
I was just going to say, I would imagine there isn't a lot of options like for, like, there's probably not a lot of raw vegan restaurants or even vegan restaurants where you are. Not really.
There's
So,
some in the closer to Minneapolis,
okay.
but there was one raw food restaurant that is closed now. It closed down a few years ago, but it
Yeah.
was called Ecopolitan. It was actually a pretty well known, throughout the
Wow.
country restaurant, but unfortunately, something happened with the parent company that owned it, and so they had to close down.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. I wanted to ask you as well, like you spoke about kind of the early part of your, transitioning into this lifestyle and kind of feeling the spiritual awakening as well. And that kind of happening. what was that experience like? What were some of the like markers that happened for you? Because from what I understand, you were never really a spiritual guy, weren't really like connected in any way prior to this. So as you kind of started along this path, like, do you remember some of the markers that may have stood out that were where you felt like there was more integration happening for you?
So yeah, I mean, I feel like I feel like we're all, spiritual. We just don't realize it,
Yeah, for sure.
and I think
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of my like I the reason why I called my channel Raw Intuition is because I remember I would be enough, I had enough of a connection with it where I could hear it a little bit, but I always ignored it. And it wasn't until I started incorporating more of the raw fruits and vegetables that I it was too loud to ignore. It was too
Yeah.
obvious, the connection had just strengthened so much that it was more obvious to me that it was truth and that it was something that I should follow.
Yeah.
I just remember, really being just fascinated by how connected I felt when I would go out to the nature center or go for a
Mm-hmm.
walk. And, I was even starting. So growing up, I used to be not deathly afraid of bugs, but I just was not, you know,
Yeah,
very
for
excited
sure.
about touching bugs or anything. And so I would kill bugs when I was younger. And then I noticed once I got into the fruits and the vegetables more, I started to have more compassion even for the bugs. And I realized,
No, me too. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I realized that it became so clear to me that I only had killed them out of fear. And so
Mm-hmm.
fear, like one thing I realized was sometimes I would have a bug crawling on me and I wouldn't know that it was there. And it would be like it would have been on me for several minutes. And then I realize it's there. And then I get scared and I freak out.
Yeah.
So I realized that the bug was there. Nothing happened to me. I was totally fine until my
Yeah.
awareness was there that the bug was there. And
Mm.
so it really showed me that I was acting out of fear, and that just opened my eyes to the effects of fear and why a lot of people do a lot of things that they
Yeah.
normally wouldn't do
Mm-hmm.
because of a lack of understanding and being engulfed in fear. And so that kind of permeated everything else that I was, thinking, or it just permeated my awareness of the
Yeah.
other thought patterns and some of my other life choices that weren't serving my best interest. And so yeah, that was like one of the things was just understanding that I was living a life rooted in fear
Mm.
and you know a lack of awareness. And
Yeah.
so it was just it's kind of hard to explain that feeling you have. It's just
I
like an
know.
internal feeling
Yes.
of knowingness and of truth. And yeah, that's just what I started
Yeah.
to feel, and I just kept following it more and more, and it kept leading to good places. So
Yeah, I think it's just the connection,
yeah,
it's just more of a connected feeling. And hence, like raw intuition, like you went raw, and then those intuitive kind of nudges probably started happening more. Like I think for a lot of us, it's those things are kind of maybe numbed out or kind of put away somewhere. And then you kind of start down this path. And especially if you start doing some detoxification and incorporating some juicing, they just kind of come up, and it is an opportunity to kind of question things a little bit more deeply than you may have otherwise even noticed. And I think it all circles back, like you had said, to the awareness piece of bringing more awareness to, pretty much sometimes it feels like you're living under a microscope and sometimes because it's like there's so much awareness for everything that it's like sometimes like Dr. Morse sometimes says like you have to kind of bring yourself back down sometimes because it can kind of get you off into these other, it almost feels like other realms where everything feels so intense.
yep,
Yeah.
totally.
So do you have a spiritual practice? Like, do you like meditate regularly? Do you make a point of going out to nature, like, during your week? Like, what are some things that you do to kind of nurture that side of the body?
Yeah. I meditate as much as I can get myself to. I have to
Hmm.
admit I'm not the best at maintaining my meditation practice, but I do try to do it as
Hmm.
much as I can. And so that's one thing. Another thing is, yeah, going out. We have a nature center nearby that we like to go out and hike and spend
Yeah.
time out there. I do try. I don't know that I would call it. I mean, it's probably technically meditation, but I just try and be silent for at least a
Yeah.
few minutes out of the day and just
Hmm.
allow, not necessarily closing my eyes, but just, just being silent and hearing my own thoughts. And
Yeah.
so that's one thing I do as well. Yeah, and really, I think to me, you know, feeding the body fresh fruits and vegetables is almost a spiritual practice. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it really is.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I would, that's what comes to mind as far
Yeah.
as my
Yeah.
spiritual
No, that's
practice.
cool. I feel like, it's like individual, some
Yes.
people, their meditation is sitting for 20, 30 an hour. Others is just going for a walk in nature. It's one of those things that's very personal. It's like, I just feel like as long as you're taking the time and allowing the mind to just kind of quiet, whatever that looks like, I think we all get the benefit from that, and that can be meditation, can be different things to so many different people. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Where do you have like on the kind of the exercise spoke of the wheel, do you also follow like an exercise program? Do you go to yoga, anything like that?
Yoga is one thing I have tried to get into over the years, and again, kind of like meditation, I just haven't been able to stick with it. I do some stretching though. Usually, I try and get stretching in
Yeah.
a few minutes a day, but I don't follow a uh, regimented exercise
Mm-hmm.
plan. Really,
Program.
I have a few dumbbells at my house. I do a lot of push-ups and pull-ups and stair climbing, running up and down the stairs, and squats and things like this. So a lot of calisthenics type stuff.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah, so that's really the basics of my workout routine.
Yeah.
I work
Simple.
out.
Simple.
Yeah, it is very. It's just like I eat.
Right.
It's just like I try to
Yeah.
do everything else.
Hmm.
Honestly, I do enjoy going to the gym sometimes when I
Yeah.
can, but I really have never frequently gone to the gym. Even
Hmm.
though when I do, it's nice to have the equipment and things. But yeah, I typically just do at home stuff and go out hiking and things like that.
Do you follow any kind of like biohacking, like cold showers, sauna? You know, I don't know. There's so many different red light therapy, all of these
Mm,
different things, infrared sauna. Do you do any of those types of things?
Not regularly, no.
Yeah.
The thing I try to do is breath work. I
Yeah. So
guess,
I was
and
going to say breath work too.
yeah, and that I guess could be a spiritual practice as well.
Yeah.
And that's actually, that came to me during a 26-day water fast was my connection
Yeah.
with my breath, and how important the breath is to everything, our mental state, our,
Yes.
how our body feels. Because, growing up with asthma, that was something that I think really
Oh,
messed
yeah.
up my breathing patterns. And so
Hmm.
led to anxiety and things. And so when I did a 26-day water fast, and that was the main message
Wow.
that I took from that was the importance of the breath. And so I started
Mm.
studying, how to breathe, and yeah, that I think the breath is one of the most overlooked
I
things
agree.
that people, it's not. Why would you think that breathing is something you need to study, right? But really, in the sympathetic dominant state that most people live in, their breathing is usually not
Yeah.
full, and
Compromised. So,
yeah, it's
yeah.
compromised. Yeah.
Have you done any like holotropic breath work, kind of like intense breath
Uh,
work? Like
uh,
I know there's like Wim Hof
Wim
method
Hof.
and yeah, doing that and I've done that, but have you done any kind of like extended breath work for the purpose of like emotional release?
No, I haven't, but I definitely that is something that I should look into because
Yeah, it's amazing.
okay, I'm going to look
Yeah,
into.
super amazing. I know there's like holotrophic breath work, but also I don't know if you follow like Lucas Mack and his partner Hallie Weston. I can send you their information. They do like intense breath work, and it's like extended. So you'll go into a breath work practice for like 2-3 hours of intense breathing, and
Wow.
it's what's been said is it's like being on a psychedelic.
Wow.
It's a that effect. So it's pretty amazing, pretty
Cool.
cool.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
definitely
super.
interested.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, I'll send you their information. It's just kind of nice to like if you find interest in something, like for me anyways, if I'm interested, I always like to kind of, well, where does that lead and where does that lead and where does that lead? And it's usually
Yes.
there's always like a road to different places that are really interesting.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I just wanted to ask you, because I ask all my guests this question, and the question is, what is your authentic life print? What is your unique expression as Matt
Mm.
Bennett in the world?
Wow. That's a great question. Well, I mean, what what I would say that it's probably my, our biggest challenge is, probably what that is for a lot of people. And probably, what I have tried to do, especially after getting into this lifestyle, it opened my eyes to the importance of being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
I think being authentic and learning how to express your true self, which I think most people struggle with, and it's something I have struggled with. And so that
Yeah.
is something that's just been a journey for me of learning to, you know, fine tune my communication skills and
Yeah.
align my actions with what I truly feel in my heart and my soul.
Mm.
And so that, that's one of the most important things that, I want my imprint to help people
Mm.
see is, learning how to embrace the authentic part of themselves and
Yeah.
being able to express that and communicate that with people.
I love that. Well, authenticity is the new currency. So,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
it is.
Yeah, for sure. So, what do you offer? Like, where can people find you? And what are some things like aside from your books, like, do you offer coaching? You are a detoxification specialist. So do you take people in groups? Do you work with people one-on-one? Like, what are some services that you provide for people?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, my website is myrawintuition.com. People can find all my services there, but I do coaching one-on-one, or if people want to do group coaching, they can send me a message and I could definitely set something like that up. I honestly haven't promoted my coaching services too much. If people reach out to me for coaching, I'll definitely
Yeah, sure.
consider it. It's just with the books I'm writing, like I still have like 4 other books that I'm planning to write,
Wow.
if not more, and some other projects that I've been working on. It's just been difficult for me to keep up with coaching as well as,
Sure.
all of my other projects. So yeah, I'm happy to speak with people about coaching if they want it. But otherwise, yeah, my books are probably the thing that I point people to the most at this point. Going
Yeah.
forward, I will have more services to offer people,
Okay.
probably more in lines with group coaching and programs and things like that. So
Hmm.
definitely you can sign up to my newsletter if you want to kind of stay in touch and stay, aware of what I'm putting out. And so yeah, that myrontuition.com would probably be the best
Okay.
way for people to do that.
Yeah. And you've got, how many books do you have now? You have a few
Um,
of
I have
them.
I have four, technically four. I've got 5 Star Digestion, 5 Star Salad Revolution, and 21 Day Raw Transformation Program.
Wow, it's
And
amazing.
then my first book, which isn't on Amazon, it's just on my website, but it's a kid's book.
Oh,
It's
cool.
called Vegan Adventures with Barnyard Friends.
Oh,
I
that's
made
so
it in
cool.
2017 when I, kind of came to the realization that I had been kind of lied to, growing up
Yeah.
thinking that I had to eat animals. And if I had been given the truth about, animal sentience and, what
Yes.
happens to animals, I definitely know I would have not eaten animal products.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to make a kids book for kids to help them become more aware. And it's not a graphic book. It's got, puzzles and mazes and things like that. And it's very non-graphic, but educational.
I love that. I traumatized my kids when they were younger. I was so, I was talking to Eva the other day and we were sharing our stories. I think when my kids were like, my youngest was probably like just like adolescent. And I was like, we're going to watch Meet Your Meat with like Alec Baldwin. It was like
Yeah.
so, which I would never do now. So it would have been nice to have like more of a gentle, way into it. But, I felt though at the time it was just really important for them to understand and to see like the truth of what really goes on, because there's really no way to sugarcoat that. Like it is what it is. And then, of course, it's like people can make their own decisions, but I think it's so important to like to know what the truth is and what's going on and then make your decisions after that. But we have such cognitive dissonance with this type of thing, and we just think that, I mean, I think a lot of kids, like you just said, they don't even know, they have no idea. They just do what their parents tell them. So I love that you've got a kids book. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed this. This is amazing. I'm going to order your books because I'm always looking for some amazing salad recipes and some dressing recipes. So yeah. And you said you can get them on Amazon now as well.
Yes. Yep. Amazon
Perfect.
or yeah, if you want the paperback, Amazon's the best place to go.
Okay. That's so amazing. Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Shirley. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Matt. Bye.